This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. So I saw this article on Guitar World the other day about the best-selling pedals of 2022 according to Reverb. I'm not sure, in this specific case, for sure, it looks like there's some things that are kind of skewing this list and making it a little bit strange. But in any case, I thought it made a good topic to kind of discuss between the two of us, our favourite kind of pedals of 2022. I asked Jake about this, and his favourite pedal was the Sir Riot, possibly I think it was the XTS EQ. It's like a modified EQ pedal. If you look at the list, at the very top of the list is the Hologram Electronics Microcosm. Now, I've never seen one of these in real life, and I've never heard from any of my peers except for Ant Law, jazz guitarist, peers or friends, Piers Morgan I mean, anyone using them. Now let me know if you've got one. I've definitely heard amazing things about them, and I've seen that a lot of the kind of YouTube crowd have done demos of one, but I've never seen them used sort of more than once. I'd be interested to know if there is anyone using them. Hologram did follow me on Instagram, and I would be interested in doing some demos of that piece of gear, just because I think there's a whole bunch of stuff that you could do with it. Would be cool. However, if you were to think seriously, did that outsell the Line 6 HX Stomp? Did that outsell the Strymon Big Sky? Did that outsell the Boss SD1? Did that outsell the TS9? I've got to imagine anywhere but Reverb, the answer to that would be no. And I think the reason must be that there's quite a lot of used examples of this changing hands, whereas people are going out and buying a Boss DS1 not on Reverb. If I was going to be buying a Boss DS1, I'd look on eBay for maybe 30 quid, 40 quid, or I'd just go and buy a new one, right? So the Hologram is at the top of the list, then the Keeley Compressor Plus, Earthquaker Devices Plumes, which kind of makes sense because Earthquaker Devices seem to be a very popular company. I kind of want to revisit that. Then the Line 6 HX Stomp, you know I'm a huge fan of that. Proco Rat 2, the Strymon Iridium is making an appearance here. This is obviously used items as well, so it doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually hugely popular in some ways, because you could imagine that people could be buying a microcosm thinking, oh, that doesn't work for me, and then selling it again. If you're watching this hologram, stop. Then, yeah, at 7, the Boss DS1, which I'd imagine has got to be higher than that in reality, right? There's for sure more Boss DS1s selling than hologram microcosms. There must be. TU3s, Digitech Drop, Blues Driver, Carbon Copy Analog Delay, Chase Bliss Habit, Strymon Big Sky Reverb. And I think Strymon, for sure, with the Big Sky plugin coming out this year, although I thought it was expensive, there was no doubting that once I could hear those sounds, those are still incredible sounds. I think there's something to be said for companies like Strymon, who have really not had to do much work with the Big Sky or the Timeline for them still to remain classics. I think they deserve a place probably in history for this stuff. JHS Morning Glory version 4, the Strymon Timeline, there it is, Ditto Looper, the Dunlop Crybaby Wah, Strymon Flint. Now I hear loads and loads of great things about the Strymon Flint. Again, seems that they got it perfect straight away. Number 19, the Boss SD1. I think probably that's not a fair reflection of how many units they sell. And number 20, the Ibanez TS9. Now, in the terms of new things that came out, we got Chase Bliss Habit, Earthquaker Devices Special Cranker, the Line 6 DL4 Mark II, which I actually got to try this year, really impressive, but I do have all of those same things within a HXFX or an HX Stomp or a Helix. So number 4, the Keeley Halo, which I really liked as a pedal, and I think it's cool to be able to get Andy Timmons's kind of take on his delay sound, you know, specially developed for him. I think that's a really cool thing. Universal Audio Dream 65, number 5. I really like this pedal as well. The Boss RE202, I got to try that this year as well. The Space Echo, really cool little pedal. MXR Poly Blue Octave, MXR Duke of Tone. So this was nice to see something that could be mass produced, potentially that lots of people could get their hands on without being on a waiting list. Boss RE2 Space Echo, the Walrus Audio Modulation Machine, the Ruby Top Boost, then the JHS Overdrive Preamp, the Walrus Audio Slotvert Multi-Texture Reverb. Now, I think this is like the Slow, in which case the Slow has been my favourite kind of reverb pedal for quite a while. I've done lots of videos about that. 14, Death by Audio Spacebender. 15, Source Audio Zeo, I've never heard of that. 16, Jam Pedals Delay Llama Mark III, I've heard of that. 17, the Soldano Slow Pedal, I've heard of that. 18, the Walrus Audio Law, I think this was like a reverse kind of thing, reverse delay. Nux NGS 6 Amp Academy, I tried that this year, really cool for the money. 20, the Wampler Moxie, which is like their sort of take on an Ibanez TS10. Interesting, now things that didn't make the list that I think probably should have. The Eventide H9 got an upgrade in terms of they've now brought out the H90. I think people that are using an Eventide H9 or a pair of them, as quite a lot of pros do, are going to be super excited by that. It's got a few new algorithms. I'd never tried an Eventide H9 until today, so here's some of that. But I think people were genuinely excited about the H90. I think I want to try and review one if I can. So the H90 was released this year, I think to the surprise of a few folks. I've actually never tried an Eventide H9 even. I borrowed this off of Jake because I wanted to get a sense of how some of these things sounded. I'm going to do a more in-depth video on one coming up at some stage because he's only just given me the power supply for this. The only negative that I can really think of with the H9 is that you've got a specific kind of power supply for it. So if you don't have the cable, like I didn't for the last week, you can't really do anything with it. But aside from that... let's just have a look at some other presets. This is my first time turning it on. useful for some film stuff. Anal. Okay. Oh, analog. Cool. Nice. Tape. We've got mix, delay A, feedback. What's that? So loads of really cool sounds in here. I need to kind of dig into this a bit more. Interesting. Some all in all, I'm really enjoying some of those tones more than I was expecting to. Of course, Eventide really are quite important to this whole idea of harmonizers and effects in general, you know, super quality rack gear. I think the H90 deserves to be on the list for best pedals of 2022, and maybe even the prices of these coming down, it might not be a bad time to buy an H9 in general anyway, because for me it seems like you could use one of these for any number of jobs, and not everyone would necessarily need two on their board, which essentially is what the H90 is. I want to get hold of an H90 to demo one, I think. And for me, the reason that I think the Meris LVX belongs on this list is because I think it's the first time that someone like Strymon, Meris, Ventris, Source Audio, these kind of companies have started to think about, okay, well, now that we've got all of these great effects and across different categories of effects, Meris have kind of decided, right, it was time then to put these into a system which is kind of modular, their modular delay system, where you've got a user interface, a screen, which is how I like to kind of work with effects anyway, coming from the modeling world, where you can kind of design your own effects, you can mix things up, you can use these incredible algorithms like the Poly, which is based on the Meris Polymoon, which if you don't get on with the LVX, because it's complicated to use in some ways for you, then at least I think it's worth going out and trying a Meris Polymoon, because to me it sounds incredible. It's got a looper in there as well as a tuner, as well as some really, really cool sounding effects. That's what I was using in the introduction there. And I don't think this one belongs just for guitarists. It seems to me that for producers and stuff like that, people that have really enjoyed the Big Sky and the Timeline, I think this is kind of the next generation of that sort of effect that might go on to become a classic. So Strymon, Big Skies, Timelines are used by people all over the world, and film producers and all this sort of stuff. I've not got a favourite drive pedal of the year, and the HX Stomp was on that list. I think that's the pedal that I've used most this year, but it didn't come out this year. I think the Meris LVX for me is the most exciting kind of new effect, which actually does look like something from 2022, 2023, especially as Meris are huge fans of Blade Runner, of course, a great film. And yeah, it seems like Jinner who designed the UI, has done an incredible job of making something that kind of looks and feels futuristic to use. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to use, but I think the sounds in it are really inspiring. You've got some really great pitch algorithms, great delay sounds, and of course what you can do is whatever your delay algorithm that you're using is, whether it's reverse, series, poly, all this stuff, you can change the delay head to be like tape style, bucket brigade style, or digital, as well as being able to put things in all sorts of different configurations and using lots of weird sounding stuff on it. It's an incredibly capable delay unit, and I think maybe this is kind of where the future of kind of pedals might be going, where these kind of super companies like Meris, Strymon are actually not huge in terms of numbers of people, but in terms of their impact in the effect world, I think they might be going hopefully towards these kind of multi-effects pedals, so that you can get a lot out of a small box, sort of like the size of an HX Stomp. And if you imagine a board which had an HX Stomp and an LVX, there's almost nothing that you couldn't do with that. Could be incredibly powerful. Let me know your favorite effects of the year. Is there something that I've missed that should have been on this list? I'd love to know your thoughts and your kind of favorite things. Do you want me to try out an H9T? I'd be happy to try and do that if I can afford it and scrape together the coin. I'll catch you in another video soon. Cheers for now.